and welcome to the Church Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Young. Welcome, everyone. We have a great podcast in store for you today. I am really excited about today's guest for a lot of reasons. Number one, obviously, I know he has so much wisdom and so many great things to say, as always, as all our guests. But I know he's got so many great things to say. But also, two really cool things. Number one, he is, number one of the other things, he actually belongs to the church that I go to, my current church. He's in the leadership there. And even one up from that, I can actually throw a rock across from my patio deck and hit his house. He is my neighbor.
Please don't.
Yes, please. But yes, everybody, welcome. He has been the children's pastor at New Life Church for how many years?
This is my 9th year, started in 2015.
Wow, 9 years. Welcome, everyone. Pastor Michael Gorman, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Ben. This is awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited. This is really cool because we were just talking before we started recording, and this is actually my very first live in-person interview. I've actually all the other ones I've done, I've done via phone, and so it's cool to have like another person right here that I can talk with. It's really cool. I like it.
Glad to be the first.
Yeah. So asked you the first question I was asking. I did not know it had been that long. 9 years. That's amazing. So, well, honestly, let's just get started. I mean, tell me, as I ask a lot of guests, just tell me about your background, growing up, like what it was like, and, how you became a Christian,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I was brought up, Church of God, Cleveland, Tennessee boy.
Oh, nice.
So I went to Church of God in North Carolina, which is where I'm originally from. And I was there basically my whole childhood and partial adult life till we moved here in Huntington in 2015. But yeah, no, I loved the Church of God, and it was super fun. It was a really great base to kind of, start the roots. And it's just been so good to me.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you grew up in all that. Were you young, like when you got saved?
Right. So we, like I said, went to the church. I was real young, and I think I was around 8. I hate to say try to remember. You should know that.
Hey, you're a kid,
right? Yeah. So, but I was definitely a child, and I remember this particular day. Actually, one of my friends was at the altar, and she was getting filled actually with the Holy Spirit, and I was just so stoked to see what was going on, but also I was confused. I was like, "Hey, what's happening over there?" And I kind of was just as an 8-year-old, a little timid, But I remember going home that night and asking my mom, "Hey, what happened to that girl? What's going on? Why was she crying? And what's happening?" And so my mom told me, she's like, all your Bible stories, all your lessons that you've learned, and she was getting filled with the Holy Spirit.
Nice.
And so I was like, well, that's awesome. I want to know more about that and have, get that. I want
Nice.
I want to do that stuff too.
Yeah. Cool.
So that's kind of a base is where I first remember kind of that first coming of Christ and really grasping what God was and
Cool.
God is.
That's awesome. Well, that's really cool. And I really enjoy these questions, but because honestly, I've gotten to know you a little bit, but a lot of these things I'm just finding out for the first time.
Yeah.
So did you sense a calling to ministry, or how did you end up walking into that? And tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I'll try to keep it short. If you know me and anyone that, that's friends with me, I love a good joke. I love comedy. I'm a huge Robin Williams fan. I just loved the way that he made me feel as a person watching his movies.
Cool.
But one of the things that I really wanted was I remember also as a young kid, teenager, the way that Robin Williams actually made me feel after a particular movie, such as actually it was Patch Adams. I said, I want the way that I feel to have that impact on people.
Nice.
And I know it's kind of a little bit different than
That's awesome.
but when I was that age, I was like, well, I want to do something with children. I want to be a doctor, a teacher. I wasn't really sure, I just knew, but I knew deep down, even at a young age, I want to deal with kids.
Wow.
I want to help kids. I want to, the way that he made me feel in these movies, I want to help them have these feelings as well.
Nice.
So
that's cool. That is really cool. That actually answers some of my other questions or some things I was going to ask you because, about sensing the call. I was going to ask you, hey, did you always feel called to children's ministry? Did you think it was something else? But obviously it sounds like, hey, your passion was like, I want to work with children. I want to.
Yeah. So the background of my old churches, you have your children's church, your Sunday school, things like that. And we had a great children's pastor at the time. Shout out to Miss Sylvia Melvin. And she was awesome. And she retired. And then actually my mom and dad stepped up.
Okay.
And we didn't have a children's pastor, so they stepped up. And so because I was the son, I had to step up too.
Wow.
And so my mom and dad became children's pastors. And I ended up actually running the sound as a teenager.
Oh,
and so kind of, had to. And, there's times that I loved it, times I hated it, times I'm like, I don't want to do this. But now in the long run, it's really cool to see how honestly I feel like I've never gotten away from children's ministry and how much I still love it.
That's awesome.
And so it's super, super cool to go way back and just still have that burning passion for children's ministry.
Well, I think that's huge. Now, I might be wrong in this. I have not studied statistics, but you might know more about this. I think statistically, the lifetime of a children's ministry is short. Is that a statistic?
So in my take, I have seen children's ministry is a very quick turnaround.
Wow. Yeah.
And a lot of people, which is fine, I get it, but they kind of find it as a stepping stone. Like, hey, I want to do this. I want to be an associate pastor. And then they're like, well, let's start at the bottom. Let's see how you do with kids or youth or, anything else. Show me how if we give you something small, how to stick your teeth in that, But no, it's cool because actually, funny enough, when I moved here to Huntington, I met with Pastor Josh, Pastor Daryl Huffman, both of them, and I did an interview with them. And when I did that interview, I told them, I said, hey, if you're looking for someone to move up the ladder, I'm not your guy.
Wow.
And I said, I don't want to move up. I don't want to be youth. I don't want college. I don't want, I don't want to be any other pastor. I said, if you want a full-time, hardworking children's pastor, hire me.
Wow.
And he hired me, and I've been here 9 years since.
I bet they were like, okay, yeah, let's hire this guy. Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is great. Well, obviously just from, like I said, from what I've heard and just talking with you, that's very valuable, to have somebody like, hey, this is my heart. This is my passion. This is not stepping for me. This is not a stepping stone.
Right.
That is cool. That is really awesome. And that just makes me realize like how blessed we are to have you at this church,
well, thank you.
And my wife and I, we're working on having some children. And so we know that we'll have a good place to bring our children up.
Absolutely.
That is so cool. How did you talked about coming here to New Life. How did you make that transition? Like, what was the connection? Like you said, you grew up in North Carolina, and I forgot to mention you have a wonderful, lovely wife of how many years?
Oh gosh, we got married in 2013.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Y'all just celebrated your anniversary,
sure
right?
did, yeah.
And then, and also while I'm mentioning it, I know this would probably be a whole nother podcast, but you all have two wonderful miracle babies.
Oh yes, that's a whole nother animal.
Yeah, and
God
that's
is good.
we don't. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, Alba Rose is my daughter. And she just turned 1 on the 7th. And Atticus will be 4 in September.
That is wonderful. So I kind of interrupted my question, but like, tell me a little bit about that connection, like growing up in North Carolina, what connected you all to come here to Huntington?
Right. So it's really funny. So right before we had moved to Huntington, we had at my old church this I guess it's called a revival. It was a particular pastor. He came down and he was here for weeks. I mean, like I think it was like 10 or 11 weeks, something. Hope I'm not fudging it, but I'm pretty sure it was a long time.
Yeah.
And it was so cool. But I'll tell you, one of the things that got me was this particular pastor. He had called me and Courtney up, and it was the craziest thing ever. And as you know, and kind of know our story, and they had asked us, "Hey, what are you believing for? What do you need from God?" And at the time, of course, we were like, "Hey, we would love to have kids. Like, it is our passion, it is our drive. We want kids." Nice. And so this was in 2014. Oh, wow. And so we knew getting married, like, we wanted to have a great life, explore, travel, just do all kinds of super fun stuff. Nice. But the pastor at the time, he said, "Hey, I got to tell you something that God told me." And I was like, "Okay, give it to me. Come on." And he said, "You're pregnant." And I was like, "Oh yeah?" Like, okay. Like, I need to go tell my wife apparently, cause she hasn't told me. Surprise, And, it was like, "Oh, that's cool." So we went home, we talked about it, and she's like, "I don't know. I didn't know." So, blah, 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 blah. And again, we were there he was there for 10, 11 weeks. And so I was like, what's this guy doing? What's he talking about? I was like, clearly 10 weeks has passed. She's not pregnant. Like, what's going on? And so during the revival, I wasn't looking to move. I wasn't, I didn't even have a resume. Yeah. I loved my home church, and I still do. Like, such a great place to be. Yeah. And it was crazy. And I remember I was at one of our favorite restaurants after church, a Bojangles, so good. Yeah. And I got a phone call, and it was actually my uncle. And he said, "Hey," "this is super crazy. I don't know why I'm really telling you this. I know you love your church, but would you be interested in moving to Huntington, West Virginia?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "I'm not moving to West Virginia." And he's like, just pray about it, think about it. And I was like, "Okay, whatever." And so I did that. And what's crazy enough, I was like, Courtney, I was like, "Well, I mean, I don't want to never say like just flat out no. I mean, I want to pray about it. I do want to think about it." And so I was like, "Well, let's figure out a resume. Let's write a resume up." Writing my resume, and a week and a half later, I get another phone call from another random church.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm not going to say the name, but it was a bigger name church. Huh. And I was like, "What is happening?
What is going on here?"
And so I was just like, "This is insane." So I actually tell my lead pastor, I was like, "Hey, look, I'm not doing this. I'm not like going out and like sending out my resume, like, we'll work, I'm like, I don't know what's happening." He's like, "Well, maybe God's just calling you." And he's a great man, and he's such a father to me. And he encouraged me. He's like, "Wow, if it's God, then it'll work out."
Wow.
And so I went for my first interview at this other church, and man, it was spectacular. It was a great church. Wow. It was in Columbus, Ohio, and it was just a fantastic church. And I was like, "Geez, this is awesome." And they flew us out, and we did the interview. And then after we got back on the plane, and I looked at Courtney and I said, "I don't know why, but this isn't the place." And she's like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, I don't think I'm sure, but I mean, I feel like God's telling me like this isn't the place
Yeah.
to try to go to Huntington.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. So then the next week we drove to Huntington, met Pastor Darrell, met Pastor Josh, and I met him, loved him. It was super cool. And that Father's Day, it was the week before Father's Day, and he said, "Hey, I'll give you a couple days to think about it. You got the job. Let me know on Father's Day." And I was like, "Okay." I was like, "That's fair enough." And so on Father's Day of 2015, we decided that we would make New Life Church our new home church.
Wow.
And man, I don't want to take up too much time, but man, it's amazing how much God was in it, because honestly, I was still super scared. I was confused that, I wasn't looking to move.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one of the greatest people was there for me, and I wanted to call him, and it was my grandfather. And I said, "Papa, guess what? I got a job and I'm moving closer to you." He lived in Summersville, West Virginia. Awesome. And so I was like, "We're going to be so close." I'm like, "I'm going to see you all the time." And he's like, "That's awesome. That's awesome." He said, "Hey, real quick," he said, "I want you to keep me in your prayers." He said, "Something's going on. I don't know what it is. But don't worry about it. Just pray." And I was like, "Absolutely. Yeah, no big deal." The next day, I got a call. He went to the hospital, and he was diagnosed with glioblastoma, which is a brain cancer. And what was insane was, had no idea about this.
Wow.
No idea.
Wow.
And what was crazy was I had already accepted the job, so God already knew where I was supposed to be.
Oh my goodness.
And his God rest his soul, he passed in September of 2015.
Oh my goodness.
So from July, where I accepted the job, to September, I got to spend the last 3 months so much closer than I would have ever been able to. And it was crazy. It was crazy. But God is just in it. And but to back up where I had said, you're pregnant, I didn't understand that it wasn't a physical baby. It was a spiritual thing coming on, because from that time that he told me back at that time, it was approximately 9 months. And we moved to Huntington, West Virginia.
That is awesome. I love that.
Man, it was nuts. Like, you can't make this stuff up.
No, you can't. Oh my goodness. That is awesome. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. That's wow. I love how God does that though. And like you said, there's so many, like, we see one thing or this thing, but God knows.
Right.
And obviously you've been here for 9 years. So, obviously that wasn't the only reason you came here, but it's just so cool to see how God knew and orchestrated, like, hey, like, this is where you need to be. I emphasize so much, and the listeners of this podcast have heard it too with other people. It's like, that's what's so important, to like be led by the Spirit of God.
Yep.
And that's exactly what you did. You're like, man, I'm sorry, but this is just not it. This is not what we're supposed to do. And I've had time and time again, like me and Jessica, my wife, and just like, we're like, it's just, something's not right. It just didn't sit right. And and then this other thing over here, oh, that's right. That's God. I just know. Like the Apostle Paul used to say, it seemed right to me in the Holy Ghost. It seemed right. You're led by the Spirit. So I just think that's awesome. And I love to hear stories like that. And, I don't know. It's just that just never gets old. I love that. Explain to me, obviously, this is near and dear to your heart. Explain to me what it means to you, like, about the Helps ministry. Obviously you're in children's ministry. Explain to me, the importance of that, or what that means to you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So children's ministry in Helps is making the day-to-day worth it for your lead pastor, for your lead shepherd. What's so funny is, you see these memes on Facebook, Instagram, and it's like, what people think I do, what my mom thinks I do, what I actually do. It's literally like that's life for us, as helps ministers. And I do a lot of children's ministry stuff, prepping curriculum, calling volunteers, having Zoom meetings, and when there is a kid in the hospital or something, go visit and talk. And, right now it's summertime. It's our favorite time. And we do what are called pop-up events. And so we just go into the community and just do pop-ups and just, hang out with kids. And, so it's super fun, but one of the things that you do, what people don't see is, when you get that phone call and someone just wants prayer that's in the middle of Mississippi. Wow. There's random people that call that still need God throughout the week. Wow. And so that's what we're here for. Wow. And if Pastor Josh needs something done, and he can't do it because he's doing his thing, then one of us pastors will be his left arm, his right arm, and his Aaron, his and we're holding him up. We're doing what we got to do. Nice. If that means going to get groceries, filling up a van, you do what you got to do, man.
Man, that's cool. And that, just like as you're talking, it's like, I love the church. I'm fascinated, and it's just cool to hear that, because it's like a team effort. And I've been blessed to be able to, for 15 years, I was employed, at Rhema, so right now I'm currently just serving at church, which is great and amazing. But it's so cool to be it reminds me of those days where it's a team effort.
Right.
And it's 100%. Cool. It's like, yes, okay, I was technically audio engineer, but I mean, that was like a tiny slice of what I did. If something's needed, you do it, and
100%.
And I just think that's one of the things about this podcast. I love people to have that inside look. It's, like, just to see that, like, man, it's like a team. It's like, you're all doing this together. And I've always been fascinated with that, to see how the church works. So tell me, one of the things I was very impressed with, and I'll just share this, just so my listeners don't get a little confused. Some of my other podcasts, I talked about a different church. Just want to get that out there. Nothing bad happened. And matter of fact, just talking about being led by the Spirit of God, my wife and I moved here, and I talked about this in the first podcast. I'm not going to take up too much time, but we were at the church we were at for a little over 2.5 years. Nothing bad happened, but we started sensing something different. And we started and we were very familiar with New Life Church, just because they have a relationship, with Rhema, where I used to be. And, but anyway, I say all that to say, we were led, and we talked to our previous pastor and sit down with him and said, listen, here's our heart. We're not offended. We love you all, but this is just what God is doing. He's sending us to this church, So anyway, I preface what I was going to say with that, just because I thought, well, people listen to this and be like, well, I thought he went to this church. But anyway, back on track. At New Life Church, one of the things I was talking when really my wife and I first got to know you and your wife, you were talking about children's ministry and serving. And one of the things that was really impressive to me is like, hey, we don't want to wear our people out. we try to like really help people, help them be successful. And so tell me a little bit about that. I think that's an important thing. And, inside look at churches, to talk about like, okay, what do you all do? Tell me about what you do, like with your volunteers, and some things you do to like, hey, not let them get burned out and different things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So again, what's fascinating about it all is you learn so much. You learn your people. I've only been at 2 churches, but I've helped other people. I've been at other churches, and I hear, it's not just like, oh, it's an East Coast thing or whatever. It's church wide, man. Mm-hmm. I mean, people are just people, and it is hard. It's something that, I've been doing children's ministry since, I mean, since I was youth, but paid, I've been doing it since I think it was like 2009. So I've been doing it for almost like 15 years now. So, every time it just changes. But one of the things that I've learned in these 15 years is simply this, that if you have ever been burnt out, which I feel, it's very important for pastors to recognize, like you give a lot, and it's very important for you to feed yourself, because if you don't feed yourself, your sheep, they're gonna copy you.
Wow, that's good.
They're gonna copy what you do. And if you can't feed yourself, you can't feed your sheep, and then your sheep ain't gonna be fed. But when I moved here to New Life, I learned all kinds of different things. I learned different tactics. I learned through other pastors. And one of the things that I really learned that is how important it was for me to be fed. It was more important for my sheep to be fed.
Wow.
And so I personally, a lot of people, I'm in some children's ministry Facebook groups and things like that. And I read these comments and they're all like, "You're insane." But this is just how I and New Life, this is how we do it, is I ask my volunteers no more than twice a month.
Nice.
And it's so important for me to do that, because that we have a great opportunity of, we have a 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock. So it's very easy for them to still get the word. But my rule is you can serve one Sunday, 9 or 11, but then the second Sunday that you serve, I ask that you have a long day, which means you're sitting in the 9 and serving at the 11, or vice versa.
Oh, wow.
So it's a longer day, but it lets me know that they're getting fed.
Wow.
Internet's great. I love it. COVID kind of like helped us with that,
Yeah.
live streaming and whatnot. But I mean, I'm going to be real. It's not the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
It's very, very helpful. For me personally, it's very helpful. Podcasts, YouTube, watching, going back on our websites, for New Life, and going back and listening to Pastor Josh or whoever's preaching. But there's no, there's nothing like it live.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just not, I mean, God will speak through you, through your television, through your iPhone. But man, when you're in the presence of God with that many people, and that point hits, and you hear that person in the back, and you're like, "You tell him, Pastor." There's nothing like it, man.
Yeah. I agree. There's just nothing like it. Nothing can take the place of being there with all those people and just have in the presence of God. Like I said, not that you can't have the presence of God in your bedroom or in your living room, but there, nothing replaces that.
Yeah. So what I had to do was, in order for, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you like I'm perfect. I still, am trying to get myself in the services as much as possible.
Yeah.
Because, I'm not New Life Kids. We are.
Yeah.
We are New Life Church. We are
so
New
good.
Life Kids. And so I could, God forbid, drop dead tomorrow, New Life Kids is still going. Wow. And so that's why it's so important for even me to let my sheep see that I'm sitting in the service.
Oh, man.
And so that's why it's really important for me. In fact, I made a phone call this week, and I said, "Hey, Steve," I said, I need you to teach for me. I'm sitting in the service this week."
Wow.
And he was like, "Yep, gotcha." I'm like, so I'm sitting in the 9 and I'm preaching the 11,
Oh my goodness.
It's just the way it goes, man. But when you get a crew like that and they see your heart,
yeah,
it may take a while. Because there's some people that may like, well, if you don't need me that much. Like, no, we do need you, but don't take it for granted either. Mm-hmm. When you find someone like that, when you get that opportunity to still be fed more than 2 times a month. Mm-hmm. We did a church overview a few years back at New Life Church, and it just blew our minds, all the staff, that the average church, like this is after COVID. This is like 2022, I believe, maybe 2021, 2022. Anyway, the average New Lifer we came to church 1.75 times a month.
Oh my God.
So not even 2 times.
What?
And it was crazy. And we're like, how is that? We're like, hey, who's popping in and popping out? You know?
Yeah. Oh my.
But what we found is like most of the people are only 2 times a month. And so if you miss one,
Yeah.
like there's not a lot of time.
Oh my goodness.
And so, and it's not just New Life. Like if all the churches would do this, it would blow their mind because they just think like, oh yeah. Now you do see, the normals that come every single week.
Yeah.
Sick, not sick, whatever.
Yeah.
Stay in the back, put your mask on.
Yeah.
But still, like it's so important for those sheep to be fed.
Yeah, man. I tell you, that is gold. And like you said, it just hits the nail right on the head. If I always, this is a big thing in my heart is like, some people think, well, but we have to be there. If I'm not there, who will do it? And I know it's easy to get into that. And the thing is as a church, as a helps minister, as a church volunteer, you have the right heart, but like what you're saying is so cool because it's so important to get fed on your own and to see you all as the leadership say, no, we're leading in this. You have to sit in church some. That is amazing because like you said, the church follows the leadership. So as you guys do that, your people see how important that is. And they get fed and they say, oh, okay, this is important. I got to send in church too.
Right.
So I think that's amazing.
Yeah. Wait till you find when you sit with them. Like when you're like, hey, JoJo, scoot over. I'm sitting with you today. And
Oh,
like,
man. Dude, that is awesome. That is so great. Oh, man. So what are let me ask you this. What is like, if you could say one of your favorite things you do as a children's minister, as working in the church, do you have one or is it multiple things?
Man, so one of my favorite things, I know it sounds a little different, but man, I mean, first of all, it sounds like a cliche answer, but I get to.
Yeah.
I get to I get to serve and, huge plus, I get paid to serve. I get paid to like do God's work. It's such a blessing. But one of my favorite things to do when I first got on staff, that we had this one guy and he was always like the go-getter. He went to Walmart, Sam's and got the groceries and everything. And I was like, hey, can I do that? I'm a busybody, man. I get my steps in, no problem.
Yeah.
And, but what I love about it is I get to go out into the community and, when I'm driving down to Sam's in the New Life Church van, people see me and they're like, oh, hey, you're Pastor Michael, or hey, you go to New Life. So it's important for me to always like show people, who I am, but also like sometimes you just got to be real and just say like, hey, look, like we're doing this. This is what we do. We're getting, we have a cafe, so I'm out getting food for the cafe.
Yeah.
We do growth tracks, so we give them free breakfast, just all
Nice.
kinds of different things that you just don't see and you don't think about it.
Yeah.
You get there and you're like, oh, there's food, and it's not all food, like we get, if a computer goes down and we fix it, we try to fix it ourselves first,
Yeah.
but then if not, we got to go to, Best Buy or Walmart or wherever.
Yeah.
To
Fix your computer.
to fix it. Yeah. But it's just so fun that, 15 years now, I get to do this and I'm blessed to do this. And it's just such a dream come true to serve the Lord and really, really have fun with it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So what do you do to refresh yourself? Now, I know there's the spiritual aspect and you already touched on that, like you have to feed yourself. So, but is there something that helps you to, if you feel like you need a little break or if you have a crazy busy week, is there something you like to do?
Well, yes and no. So before kids.
Yeah.
Before Atticus.
Yeah.
We all know him. He's an awesome kid.
Oh, he's great.
But no, yeah, no. So one of the things that actually I ended up loving to do, I took a running class in 2018, and it was one of those basically like couch to 5K kind of deals.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it was super cool though because my aunt, super avid runner, like is fantastic.
Yeah.
And she just loves to run and honestly, like, you know, at first I was like, I'm not running. I'm not that guy. And I just had this love for running. Yeah. And, you know, I don't do it as much as I used to, but I want to, you know, like,
yeah,
it's still there.
Yeah.
And, so, but now in the summer, like, you know, we go to the park just about every other night we try, and we go to the soccer fields and there's no one out there, and man, we just let them loose. Like, just like go for it, bro.
Yeah.
And so we like play tag. Actually yesterday we went to the baseball field and just ran bases.
Oh, nice.
You know, it's just super fun. Nice. But I love to run. I wouldn't call myself an ultimate gamer or anything.
Yeah.
But I have a friend that we play every Thursday night at like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And it's just like our getaway.
Nice.
You know, it's just simple, just catching up. He lives in North Carolina. I live here. And, you know, we just chat. We just talk about God. We talk about silly things, talk about Star Wars, you know, like just Marvel, whatever, you know, just talk about life, talk about kids, talk about just life. And so those are kind of like my, like, you know, normal things. But like we just did our big summer event, Kid Stock, that we did. And it's a huge event for the summer. And then the following week we did our church East Coast camp, which was like 700 youth. And man, it was crazy. But man, I wouldn't change it. Like, what was it last year I couldn't go because the complications with Albaros, and I was so upset, and I was trying everything I could do to like figure out how to get there. And here's the beautiful thing is, as much as I wanted to go, Pastor Josh, Pastor Dennis were like, hey, look, you're where you're supposed to be. Yeah. And, you know, we want you there, but you're not coming. You're staying with your family. And I was like, you're right. I know. Wow. And, but again, that's a whole nother podcast. But man, you know, I love, getting away. We're getting ready to go on vacation, actually the week of my birthday.
Nice.
So July 21st, we're going to be going. We got a little condo with Courtney and her family, and we're just going to have a great time. Just chill, sleep, go to the beach. Nice. You know, probably try to run around the beach.
Yeah.
So nice. Yeah, just little things, man. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. Well, and that kind of brings me, once again, it's just so cool to see leadership like, hey, to value that, like, no, you're going to stay with your family. And right. that kind of brings me another question. How important is it, would you say, to somebody else, to have your family involved, or to have the support of your family, or to be somewhere that supports family?
Oh, 10 out of 10, man. You got to.
Yeah.
And that's one thing, man. Both churches that I've been at is hardcore family first.
Yeah.
One of the things that's funny, my first church that I went to, they had the four P's, and I've always remembered it. I went through MIP and CAMS and LEAD and all that. But they said there's 4 P's that you always have to have. And first of all, you're a person. So you have to take care of yourself.
Wow.
Okay. After that, you are a partner. Mm-hmm. And so that partner is very important, because like that's where you're at. Third kind of is now, but you're a parent. You have to take care of your kids. Yeah. And then last, you're a pastor.
Wow.
And so what's really cool is those are the order, but he's like, there will be some times when, you know, you get a midnight call and one of your kids, you know, has had, you know, an accident or something. That pastor gets moved up. And so it's just kind of coordinating those 4 P's to where they need to go.
Oh, wow.
And I really, really feel like those 4 P's at Goldsboro Worship Center and at New Life Church, man, those 4 P's are very important. That's awesome. Man, that's one thing that my wife all the time, she'll even joke with me. She's like, "Hey, are your P's in order this week?" Like, you've been at church a lot. And I'm like, you're right.
Yeah.
But yeah, those 4 P's, really important, man.
Yeah. Once again, I know I've said this goes for repeating, but I just think that's so important to keep your priorities right. And I think people think, well, no, I have to do this. It's like, well, no, if you understand, if you prioritize what's important, then you will be more effective. You know, like you said, there'll be times when ministry, like, okay, I got to take care of this. And, people in ministry understand, but at the same time, I think there are a lot of times when, you're like, oh no, I'm going to prioritize what needs to be prioritized right now, my family or whatever. And you realize when you do that, you're more effective with ministry, and you think, oh, I don't know how that worked out, but it did because I prioritized the right things, and now I'm more effective. My mind's clear, things like that. So that's awesome. That is, wow. I say this every time on my podcast, but this is gold. This stuff is gold. So what advice would you give to somebody who's starting out in children's ministry or just already in children's ministry? It doesn't necessarily have to be starting out, but what advice would you give, to somebody in ministry or ministry of helps or church in general?
Man, one of the best things that I have learned, I know your viewers can't see me, but grown man, big beard, tatted up, do not look like a children's pastor, but
burly man,
but man, one of the things that I've learned, as I said, in this time of children's ministry, is be yourself. That's awesome. Don't change. Don't try and be, when I first started out, I was like, oh, I want to be just like Furtick, and, I want to be just like, Ed Young with the massive, props, and, I'm going to bring a shark on, but just be yourself. God has created you to do something very important. And obviously if you're in ministry, God's going to use you, and he wants to use you. But if you try and manipulate what God's using, it's not going to work out. Oh, so just be yourself. Be yourself. Like I said, you see me in the street, you're not going to think at all that guy's a children's pastor, but man, that's what I love about it.
Yeah.
Is when people find out, they're like, oh.
So as we're wrapping it up, what is it that keeps you going, that burns in you?
Man, one of the things that keeps me going 100% is there's someone else. There's more kids out there. And that's what, this past Kid Stock event that we did, we had 140 kids at the church, and, I would get a little discouraged at the numbers of the signups. We do early registration, so that way we know, we buy them T-shirts and all that kind of fun stuff. And I would sign, I'd promote it. I'm like, guys, come on, it's free. You get a free T-shirt, blah, blah, blah. and I'd look, and I'm like, man, there's only we average on a normal Sunday, probably from first to fifth grade, we probably have I don't know, 60 kids, 70 kids, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But out of the 60, 70 kids, only 25 were signing up.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is crazy. But then all of a sudden, you give them a cutoff date and all this, and then you get all these names. And I'm like, who are you? You're not, I don't know who you are. And that's what was so cool is you do these events, you do, just ministry in general, and you see all these new kids. And you're like, hey, I don't know you. And that's awesome.
Oh, dude.
And so, whether they go to a church, don't go to a church. And that's the cool thing about it is I don't go to like, hey, do you go to such and such church or da 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 da. It's like, hey, the main purpose, do you know Jesus?
Oh, dude. That is so cool. That is awesome. Oh my goodness. Well, I can't thank you enough. I wish we had more time. Man, I was like, wow, this goes so fast. But thank you again so much. This has been
absolutely.
a pleasure and honor interviewing you. And man, what do I say? Everybody, thank you all as well for joining us, and join us next time as we go in this adventure together called the Church Podcast.